for justice, accountability, international law, but mostly for the Palestinian people who continue to face acts of genocide and other atrocity crimes. What we've seen today is unfortunately a court that was unwilling to stand behind and reflect on the decision of and the justification of national security. But what we've seen also is a failure to reflect on the security of the Palestinian people to be free from acts of genocide and atrocities. The court today has invited Parliament to now hold the executive to account, to ask questions and to ensure that the government is complying with their international obligations. And what we as Human Rights Watchers are calling for is that as the government have said that they will comply with international law, they should. The facts on the ground are clear. The government is not complying with its obligation and its duty to prevent genocide and its obligations under the Arms Trade Treaty. But today is not the end. Today is the beginning of the fight that we will all continue for the rights of the Palestinian people. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Yasmin. I'm now going to pass it over to Sasha from Amnesty International UK, who is one of the other interveners in the case.
Thank you. We at Amnesty International are disappointed by today's ruling. But the court has been clear that while it does not have the authority to make a judgment on UK exports of F-35 arms parts, this does not absolve the executive or Parliament from their responsibilities to act. The UK has a clear legal obligation to help prevent and punish genocide, and yet it continues to authorise the export of weapons to Israel despite the clear risks that these weapons are being used to commit genocide. What's unfolding in Gaza is not hidden. It's being broadcast to the whole world in real time. Entire Palestinian families are being wiped out in their homes. Civilians are being targeted in what should be safe spaces. Gaza's medical system has been systematically dismantled. Its water and sanitation infrastructure has been destroyed, and its population subjected to starvation and siege. Over 1 million people have been forcibly displaced, with no safe place to go. These acts are not accidental, and in Amnesty's view, there is only one clear conclusion that can be reached. This is a genocide. This judgment does not change either the appalling reality or the illegality of the facts on the ground, nor does it absolve the UK of its responsibilities under international law. The risk that UK arms may be used to facilitate such serious international crimes remains alarmingly real and alarmingly high. If the courts now say that they do not have the ability to intervene, then the moral and legal burden on the government and Parliament to act before more lives are lost and further irreparable harm is done is even greater. Ministers and members of Parliament can no longer hide behind courts in avoiding their legal responsibilities under international law. If it's disappointing that the court today could not act itself, it has been clear that the responsibility to act properly rests with Parliament and ministers, and they cannot deny or obfuscate that they hold those responsibilities. The UK must end all arms transfers to Israel if we as a country are serious about our commitments to international law and human rights.
Speaking next will be Shahid from Oxfam, which is the third NGO that intervened in the case.
The judgment today is extremely and deeply disappointing. The court and the government have both acknowledged that the UK arms are at risk of being used in breaches of international humanitarian law in Gaza, yet prioritize the supply chains of fighter jets over the lives of Palestinians. It is unconscionable that the government would continue to license the sale components of the F-35 jets, knowing that they are used to deliberately attack civilians in Gaza and destroy their means of survival, including vital water supplies. In the 10 months since the government suspended some arms licenses to Israel, over 15,000 people in Gaza have been killed. The majority of those are women and children. There can be no excuse for the UK government's continued complicity in war crimes and crimes against humanity. The UK government should do what is morally right and immediately suspend all arms sales to Israel. And we at Oxfam will continue to support Al-Haq action following this hearing, and we will continue to hold the UK government accountable to its obligations under international human rights law and the Arms Trade Treaty, and most importantly, to the Palestinian people in Gaza. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Next up to speak, and we're delighted that she's here, is Amira Nimarawi from Health Workers for Palestine.
Just this morning, we received the news of Dr. Mahmoud Shahada Askol, a renowned pulmonary consultant from Gaza, bombed in his tent in Khan Yunis and killed. So, this news, this death, is directly related to the news that we have received this morning. With 1,580 health workers deliberately targeted and killed over the last 20 months, with hundreds just in the last months alone, it is very clear that Israel's intent to wipe out the healthcare sector is intending to continue the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians by depriving us of our healthcare system. Standing here today, as the CEO of Health Workers for Palestine, it is extremely disappointing to hear the decision today. As a Palestinian with family, friends, and colleagues in Gaza, it is extremely emotional. It is devastating. Because every single day that passes, there are hundreds of Palestinians in Gaza that are being deliberately targeted and killed using such weaponry. However, as my colleagues said here today, this is just the beginning. And as a voice dedicated to amplifying the voices of Palestinian healthcare workers from Gaza and across Palestine, we will not stop, because ending the supply of arms to Israel is the bare minimum, and holding this government to account for its complicity and its obstruction to justice is just the bare minimum. And we are buoyed by our allies who are standing here today, by Gilan and Al-Haq, who took this case forward and remain committed to pushing this case through. And we are inspired by the healthcare leaders in Gaza and across Palestine, who every single day wake up to the realities of living and working under a 77-year occupation. So we are not surprised by the news today, given the UK government's long history of complicity and obstruction of justice. But it has galvanized us, and we will continue to struggle for a free and liberated Palestine with a Palestinian-led healthcare system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Richard Burgon, MP.
Thank you very much. And I speak here as a Member of Parliament, and I've got a clear message for the government. There may be some in the government who, after receiving this court judgment today, feel pleased, feel relieved. I would say that's a big mistake, because this court judgment is very clear that this isn't a matter for the courts to decide in the view of the courts. It's a matter for the government and Parliament to decide. So the government can no longer pass the buck. On many occasions when we've raised the horrors of what's going on in Gaza, of Israel's war on Gaza, we've been told by government ministers that this, that or the other is a matter for the courts to decide. The court judgment has been very clear that on the subject of the provision of F-35 parts, the international pool, they say it's not a matter for the courts, it's a matter for the government. They say it's not a matter for the courts, it's a matter for the democratic process. So the government now has nowhere to hide. It can't pass the buck. The choice of the government after this morning's judgment is very clear. The government should immediately take the decision to stop supplying its F-35 parts, or the government remains complicit in genocide. And so I'm calling now, if the government won't do that, for a vote immediately in Parliament on whether or not these F-35 exports should continue. We know how quickly governments and this government can arrange votes when it suits them. Let's have a vote now on this. So let's end the passing of the buck. Let's end the saying it's for the courts to decide from government ministers. The government needs to take moral responsibility now and decide whether or not it wants to continue complicity in a genocide. And if it makes the wrong decision, it won't necessarily be the courts that they need to be scared of in terms of judgment. It will be the judgment of the people, the judgment of history, but most importantly, the judgment of the Palestinian people who deserve self-determination, deserve their state and deserve to be free. We'll keep on pushing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard, and for everyone who attends. That will conclude the speakers for today. We'll remain around for any questions. Thank you very much.